I wanted to make $100,000 before 2026. I wouldn't start with money. I wouldn't start with strategies, followers, or fancy tools. I wouldn't even start with skills. I would start with a decision so deep that it rattles my bones. A decision that says, no matter what happens, I am not going back to the old version of me. Because money doesn't follow wishes. Money follows identity. And the fastest way to change income is to change the person who earns it. Right now, somebody listening to this feels tired. You've tried before, you've failed before, you've told yourself this time will be different, and then life hit you again. Bills piled up, motivation faded, doubt crept in, and slowly, quietly, you began to shrink your own dreams just to survive emotionally. But I need you to hear this with absolute clarity. Just because it hasn't happened yet does not mean it will never happen. Delay is not denial. Struggle is not failure. And the fact that you are still searching, still listening, still wanting more, means there is something inside you that refuses to die. If I wanted $100,000 before 2026, I would first rebuild my relationship with time. Most people don't lack money. They lack focus. They wake up late, scroll endlessly, complain deeply, and work casually. They treat their future like a hobby and then wonder why it doesn't pay. I would become obsessed with how I use the next 24 hours, not tomorrow, not next month, today, because your bank account is just a reflection of what you do daily when no one is watching. I would wake up earlier than comfort wants. I would move while the world sleeps. I would train my body, sharpen my mind, and feed my spirit before touching my phone. Because discipline in private creates freedom in public. Motivation will betray you the moment you get tired. But habits will carry you when emotions quit. And if I truly wanted $100,000 before 2026, I would stop negotiating with laziness like it's a reasonable roommate. Laziness is not polite. It steals your future silently. I would also stop waiting for perfect conditions. Most people are waiting for confidence before they act. But confidence doesn't come before action. Confidence is built by keeping promises to yourself. Every small win strengthens your identity. Every broken promise weakens it. I would make my word to myself unbreakable. If I said I was going to work for 2 hours, I would work 2 hours even if I hated every minute. Because self-respect is built by consistency, not comfort. If I wanted $100,000, I would become aggressively useful to the world. Money doesn't chase ambition, it chases value. The marketplace does not reward potential, it rewards contribution. I would ask myself one brutal question: what problem can I solve better than most people around me? And then I would spend every day sharpening that skill until it becomes undeniable. Because in a noisy world, excellence becomes your loudest introduction. I would stop trying to look rich and start trying to become capable. I wouldn't waste money trying to impress people who don't know my struggle. I wouldn't chase trends, cars, or validation. I would chase skill, leverage, and ownership. Because the loudest man in the room is usually the brokest. Real wealth moves in silence while insecurity screams for attention. And I would also fix my environment. You cannot build a millionaire mindset in a broke environment. If everyone around you is addicted to comfort, gossip, excuses, and complaining, your dreams will suffocate. I would distance myself from people who mock growth, belittle discipline, and normalize mediocrity. Not because they are bad people, but because they are walking in a direction that doesn't match my destination. You don't need new friends, you need new standards. If I wanted $100,000 before 2026, I would accept that sacrifice is not optional. You can't build a new life with old priorities. Some weekends will disappear, some conversations will end, some habits will die, some relationships will change, and it will hurt. But pain with purpose will always beat comfort with regret. You don't get both the dream and the distractions. At some point, you must choose. I would also reprogram how I see failure. Failure is not humiliation. Failure is tuition. Every mistake is payment for wisdom. Every setback is rehearsal for the comeback. I would refuse to quit emotionally every time something goes wrong. I would stop treating temporary losses like permanent identities, because the only people who never fail are the ones who never try, and they pay the highest price of all, regret. If I wanted $100,000, I would learn how money actually moves. Not theory, not motivational quotes, real cash flow. I would learn how people sell, serve, build, scale, and distribute. I would study how attention converts to income. I would understand how systems outperform motivation. I would master one income skill so deeply that it could not be ignored. Skills will pay you even when motivation is gone. I would stop waiting for someone to rescue me. No one is coming, and that's not discouraging. That's empowering, because it means the key to your prison has been in your pocket the whole time. The moment you stop hoping for a savior, you become one. If I wanted $100,000, I would also clean my inner world. You cannot build external wealth on internal chaos. I would forgive people who hurt me, not because they deserve it, but because I deserve peace. I would release resentment because emotional baggage steals more energy than any physical labor. I would stop replaying old failures and start rehearsing the person I am becoming. And I would strengthen my faith, not just faith in results, but faith in process. Faith when results are slow, faith when numbers don't move, faith when effort feels invisible, faith when nobody claps, because unseen seasons always come before visible success. Roots grow in darkness before trees break soil. If you quit underground, you never see daylight. If I wanted $100,000 before 2026, I would turn rejection into direction. Every no would teach me how to refine. Every closed door would force me to build a better one. I would stop personalizing outcomes and start perfecting inputs, because you can't always control results, but you can always control effort, preparation, and persistence. I would also learn to sit with boredom. Growth is not always exciting. Most wealth is built in repetition, not hype. Doing the same disciplined actions when nobody is watching, applauding, or celebrating. The grind is not glamorous. It's quiet. It's lonely. It's repetitive. And that's why most people quit before they ever get close. If I wanted $100,000, I would stop scrolling through other people's lives and start scripting my own. Comparison is a thief with perfect timing. It steals your joy right when your seed is being planted. You don't know what chapter someone else is in compared to yours. You don't know what they sacrificed. You don't know what they owe. Stay in your lane. Run your race. The only person you need to beat is yesterday's version of you. I would also learn patience without losing urgency. I wouldn't rush recklessly, but I wouldn't move slowly out of fear. I would work as if success is inevitable, but prepare as if failure is possible, because faith without preparation becomes fantasy, and preparation without faith becomes anxiety. You need both. If I wanted $100,000, I would stop asking, what do I feel like doing today? And start asking, what does my future require today? Because your future self is begging you for discipline right now. The pain you avoid today becomes the pain you live with tomorrow. The discipline you choose today becomes the freedom you enjoy later. I would also stop hiding from my potential. Many people don't fail because they can't. They fail because they're afraid of what happens if they actually succeed. Success changes how people see you. It separates you. It demands more responsibility. And that fear keeps people playing small in safe misery instead of dangerous greatness. If I wanted $100,000 before 2026, I would bet on myself so hard that quitting would no longer be an option. I would burn the backup plans that exist only to protect my excuses, because half commitment creates half results. You don't drift into financial freedom, you decide into it. I would stop talking about my goals more than I work on them. I would protect my vision from small minds. I wouldn't need outside validation to stay consistent. I would understand that early silence is the price you pay for later applause, and I would be willing to pay it. If I wanted $100,000, I would realize that money is not evil, and wanting more is not greed. Wanting more is responsibility when your current income cannot support your future vision. When you want to serve more people, help your family, change your environment, and break generational cycles, money becomes a tool, not a trap. The problem isn't money. The problem is when poor thinking controls it. I would stop thinking like a worker and start thinking like a builder. Workers trade time for money. Builders create systems that work even when they sleep. I would study leverage of skills, leverage of media, leverage of teams, leverage of systems, because you don't get rich working harder. You get rich working smarter with discipline. If I wanted $100,000, I would stop romanticizing struggle and start respecting results. Struggle is only noble when it leads somewhere. Hard work without direction becomes exhaustion. You must pair effort with strategy. Sweat alone won't save you. Alignment will, and I would protect my energy like it's currency, because it is. I wouldn't argue with people who don't want to understand me. I wouldn't explain my discipline to people addicted to comfort. I wouldn't pour into relationships that constantly drain me, because energy wasted on distraction is energy stolen from creation. If I wanted $100,000 before 2026, I would understand that the journey will test me. There will be days when doubt is louder than belief, days when progress feels invisible, days when old habits call my name, days when quitting feels logical. And in those moments, I would remember why I started. Not the money, the why beneath the money, the freedom, the dignity, the security, the legacy. Because $100,000 is not about the number, it's about who you must become to earn it. And the person capable of earning it is stronger, wiser, more disciplined, more patient, more resilient, and more focused than the person who wants it. And once you become that person, the money is only a side effect. So if I wanted $100,000 before 2026, I wouldn't beg the universe. I would prepare for the responsibility. I wouldn't pray for easy, I would pray for endurance. I wouldn't ask for luck, I would ask for clarity and courage. I would show up on days I don't feel like it. I would work when it's boring. I would learn when it's uncomfortable. I'd W or persist when it's lonely. Because the truth is this, most people don't fail because life is hard. They fail because they refuse to become stronger than their excuses. And the moment you decide that your future matters more than your comfort, the game changes. You don't need permission. You don't need approval. You don't need perfect timing. You need a decision that doesn't expire when motivation fades. And if you make that decision today, if you tie your daily actions to a vision that demands discipline, if you refuse to live small when your spirit knows you are built for more, then $100,000 won't be your ceiling. It will only be your proof. Before money ever changes, the person earning it must change first. Income is not a reward for desire, it is a mirror of identity. People often chase new strategies, new platforms, or faster results, yet remain the same version of themselves that created the old results. That is why growth feels temporary for so many. They upgrade tactics but never upgrade standards. The truth is, you will never consistently earn more than the level of discipline, self-respect, and responsibility you operate from daily. When someone fully accepts this, everything begins to shift. You stop asking, how do I make more money? And begin asking, who must I become so that money naturally follows my decisions? Identity shapes behavior. Behavior creates habits. Habits shape outcomes. If someone identifies as undisciplined, inconsistent, or fearful, their actions will unconsciously protect that identity even when they say they want success. They will procrastinate at the most important moments. They will quit at the first sign of resistance. They will return to comfort after brief attempts at growth. And they will call it bad luck instead of misaligned identity. But the moment identity changes, behavior must follow. When a person begins to see himself as disciplined, focused, reliable, and relentless, new actions feel natural instead of forced. This shift does not come from hype. It comes from decisions repeated until they become automatic. Keeping small promises to yourself is where the transformation begins. Waking up when you said you would, working when you said you would, studying when you said you would. Each kept promise sends a silent message to the subconscious that you are becoming someone different. Over time, that internal reputation becomes unbreakable. Confidence grows not from praise, but from proof. Many people wait to feel confident before they act. But confidence is not the starting line. It is a byproduct. The person who keeps showing up builds identity. The person who keeps making excuses strengthens weakness. The process is always the same, whether the goal is fitness, leadership, or wealth. Who you become determines what you can hold. If your identity is built on comfort, chaos, or avoidance, larger income will only magnify those traits. If your identity is built on structure, focus, and ownership, Larger income will expand your impact. This is also why quick money collapses for so many. The money grows faster than the person. The habits are not yet strong enough to contain it. The discipline is not deep enough to manage it. The thinking is not sharp, to protect it. So it leaks through stress, ego, impulsive decisions, and self-sabotage. Sustainable wealth is not created by luck. It is created by identity alignment. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems and standards. The moment someone decides that their identity will no longer be built on excuses, emotional reactions, or borrowed motivation, they step into real power. They stop asking permission from fear. They act with intention rather than impulse. They become stable in pressure, focused in chaos, and patient in uncertainty. From that point forward, income is no longer chased. It is attracted through consistent value creation and responsibility. Motivation is loud at the start and silent in the middle. Discipline is quiet at the start and unstoppable in the end. Most people begin with excitement, fueled by emotion, inspiration, or comparison. They feel powerful for a short time, then life interrupts. Tiredness arrives, doubt creeps in, results slow down, and motivation disappears just as quickly as it came. That is where most dreams die. Not because the dream was too big, but because the person depended on emotion to carry a responsibility that only discipline could sustain. Daily discipline is not dramatic. It does not feel heroic. It often feels boring, repetitive, unnoticed. But it is the single trait that separates people who build wealth from people who only talk about wanting it. Discipline shows up when excuses feel logical. It works when nobody is watching. It continues when the reward is not immediate. It does not rely on mood. It does not ask how you feel. It simply executes what was decided in advance. People who win long term do not ask, am I motivated today? They ask, what must be done today, regardless of how I feel? That question changes everything. It removes emotion from execution. It makes action automatic. It trains the nervous system to move through resistance instead of retreating from it. Over time, this creates emotional strength. The mind becomes quieter, fear becomes weaker, procrastination loses its grip. Discipline is also self-trust in motion. Every time you follow through, you strengthen your internal credibility. Every time you quit on yourself, you weaken it. This is why consistency is more powerful than intensity. A person who works moderately every day will always outperform someone who works aggressively for short bursts and disappears. Wealth is not built in streaks. It is built in routines that survive boredom, disappointment, and slow progress. Most people do not suffer from lack of knowledge. They suffer from lack of follow-through. They know what to do. They simply do not do it consistently enough for it to compound. And compound growth is invisible at first. It feels like nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, momentum is forming, skills are sharpening, judgment is improving, confidence is growing silently. This is where discipline becomes dangerous in the best way. When the breakthrough comes, it looks sudden to the outside world, but it is only the collapse of months or years of quiet effort. Discipline also protects you from yourself. It prevents emotional decisions. It prevents impulse spending. It prevents reactive quitting. It replaces chaos with structure, and structure creates speed because it eliminates hesitation. When your routine is locked in, energy is not wasted on deciding what to do. Execution becomes your default state. The wealth building path is not hard because it is complex. It is hard because it demands consistency without constant reward. Daily discipline trains you to operate without applause, without reassurance, without guarantees. It makes you effective in environments where others freeze, complain, or quit. And when pressure increases, discipline does not break because it was built under pressure from the beginning. Money flows toward value with mechanical precision. It does not care about intention, struggles, or need. It responds only to utility, leverage, and impact. The fastest way to increase income is not to chase money directly, but to become so useful that money becomes the unavoidable side effect. This is where aggressive skill building enters. Not casual learning, not surface level knowledge, true mastery built through obsession, repetition, and refinement. The market does not reward effort, it rewards results that solve real problems. Someone can work all day and still remain broke if what they do has little demand or low leverage. Another person can work strategically for a few focused hours and create massive return if their skill is rare, scalable, or tied to revenue generation. This is why choosing the right skill matters as much as mastering it. High income skills are those that directly affect growth, revenue, visibility, or efficiency. Skills that move money, not just support it. Aggressive skill building means choosing one lane and staying there long enough to become dangerous in it. Most people remain average because they switch too fast. They chase every new opportunity, abandon progress at the first plateau, and confuse motion with mastery. Real wealth is built by people who go deep while others skim wide. Depth creates dominance. Dominance creates demand. Demand creates leverage. Learning also must be paired with application. Knowledge that is not applied becomes intellectual entertainment. The gap between consumers and builders is execution. Builders test. They fail. They adjust. They try again. They refine the offer, the message, the method. Every mistake sharpens their understanding of what works. Over time, their intuition becomes precise because it was trained in the real market, not just in theory. Value creation also requires empathy. You must understand the pain points, frustrations, and desires of the people you serve. The better you understand their problems, the more accurately you can solve them. The more accurately you solve them, the more valuable your solution becomes. This is why the best earners are not always the smartest. They are often the most practical. They listen, they observe, they iterate. The world pays for clarity, not confusion. If you clearly solve a clear problem for a clear audience with a clear message, money follows logically. Most people remain stuck because what they offer is vague, unfocused, or diluted. Aggressive skill building cuts through that fog. It sharpens your edge. It forces precision. It trains you to deliver consistently under pressure. As your skill increases, your confidence becomes unshakable because it is built on competence rather than hope. You no longer beg for opportunities, you attract them. You no longer depend on luck, you depend on execution. You no longer fear competition, you welcome it because it exposes where you still must grow. Over time, this process transforms you into an asset instead of an applicant, a builder instead of a demander, a contributor instead of a complainer. You cannot build a new future with an old lifestyle. Growth always demands subtraction before it produces multiplication. The world loves the idea of success, but resists the reality of sacrifice. Everyone wants the rewards of focus, but few want to pay the social, emotional, and psychological cost of it. True focus separates before it elevates. It isolates before it empowers. It demands that you say no to many things that feel good so you can say yes to what truly matters. Why? Our environment either accelerates your growth or quietly erodes it. The people you listen to, the content you consume, the conversations you participate in, the expectations around you all shape your standards without asking your permission. If comfort is normalized, discipline feels extreme. If mediocrity is celebrated, ambition feels offensive. If excuses are common, accountability feels unnatural. This is why environment is not a background factor. It is an active force in your outcome. Controlling your environment does not mean cutting everyone off. It means being intentional about influence. It means limiting exposure to constant negativity, gossip, victim thinking, and distraction. It means increasing exposure to people who respect time, pursue growth, and speak in solutions rather than excuses. Over time, your nervous system adapts to what is normal around you. Your ambition calibrates to your circle. Sacrifice also shows up in time. The hours most people spend on entertainment, scrolling, complaining, and escaping are the same hours needed to change your future. The price of focus is delayed gratification. The reward is accelerated freedom. What you give up now determines what you gain later, and this trade is happening whether you are conscious of it or not. You are always paying with time. The only question is what you are buying with it. Protecting your energy becomes essential at this stage. Energy is not unlimited. It is spent through emotional conflicts, meaningless arguments, unstructured routines, and constant input with no output. When energy is scattered, progress slows. When energy is focused, momentum builds quickly. Focus does not mean obsession with perfection. It means commitment to the few actions that move the needle instead of the many that only provide temporary stimulation. As focus sharpens, distractions become louder. Old habits will try to pull you back. People will misunderstand your absence. Some will mock your discipline to justify their own comfort. Some will pressure you to return to the version of you that made them feel safe. This stage tests your identity deeply. You must decide whether your loyalty is to your past or your future. Sacrifice is not loss when it is exchanged for becoming who you were meant to be. It is alignment. It is refinement. It is the quiet pruning that allows real growth to break through later. Failure shapes the path, whether you respect it or not. The difference between builders and quitters is not that one fails and the other doesn't. The difference is what they allow failure to turn them into. Some allow it to make them bitter, defensive, and small. Others allow it to make them sharper, calmer, and more precise. Failure is not random punishment. It is feedback, and feedback is only painful when it is ignored. Most people collapse emotionally after failure because they attach their identity to outcomes instead of effort. When the result does not match the expectation, they take it as proof that something is wrong with them rather than proof that something in the strategy needs adjustment. This turns learning into humiliation and slows growth dramatically. Builders separate who they are from what happened. They study what broke without letting it break them. Every meaningful skill is built on an invisible pile of mistakes. Every successful person has a private archive of attempts that did not work. The public only sees the highlight. The discipline of resilience happens in the shadows, where disappointment must be metabolized without applause. That process rewires emotional strength. It trains you to observe instead of react, to adjust instead of abandon, to recover instead of retreat. Failure also exposes weaknesses that success hides. When things work early, AWS remain buried. When things break, cracks become visible. This is not sabotage, it is acceleration. You are being shown exactly what must improve. Your systems, your communication, your time management, your emotional regulation, your planning. Those lessons are worth more than shortcuts because they fortify foundations rather than decorate results. The fear of failure sabotages more futures than failure itself ever could. Fear delays action. It postpones learning. It convinces people to stay stuck because stuck feels safer than uncertain. But stagnation is simply slow failure with better lighting. Progress requires exposure to error. The only way forward is through the very discomfort the mind resists. Resilient people do not eliminate fear. They act with fear present. They build competence under pressure rather than waiting for courage to arrive first. Over time, fear loses its authority, not because it disappears, but because it is no longer allowed to make decisions. Failure with reflection becomes wisdom. Failure without reflection becomes repetition. Builders reflect, they refine, they reposition. And each cycle shortens the distance between effort and result until success becomes structured rather than accidental. Faith is not passive hope. It is active endurance. It is the ability to keep moving when evidence is incomplete. It is commitment to the process when outcomes are delayed. Long-term vision gives direction. Faith supplies stamina. Without vision, effort scatters. Without faith, effort collapses under pressure. Together they create velocity that outlasts doubt. Most people quit not because the goal is impossible, but because the delay feels insulting. They measure progress emotionally instead of structurally. If excitement fades, they assume the path is wrong. But growth is not an emotional experience. It is a structural one. The foundation does not feel exciting while it is being poured, but it determines everything that stands later. Long-term vision prevents short-term panic. When you know where you are going, temporary slowdowns lose their emotional power. You stop reacting to every fluctuation and start executing with patience. Vision anchors decision-making. It filters distractions. It clarifies what deserves energy and what can be ignored. Faith keeps you consistent when logic alone would quit. There are moments in every long pursuit when the data does not yet justify the effort. The results have not caught up to the work. The numbers are not moving fast enough. The recognition is absent. That is where faith operates, not as denial of reality, but as commitment to a trajectory that has not fully revealed itself yet. Silent seasons are unavoidable. They are the phase where capacity is built before exposure, strength before display, skill before spotlight, character before currency. People who abandon the process during silence sabotage their own breakthrough. People who persist emerge with momentum that looks miraculous but is actually mathematical. Faith also redefines effort. You stop working only for immediate reward and start working to become the kind of person who remains effective under any condition. This changes how you handle stress. It stabilizes your pace. It keeps you grounded in uncertainty. Over time, your nervous system becomes trained to operate calmly in growth rather than chaotically in crisis. Long-term vision also keeps you ethical under pressure. When short-term gain tempts you to compromise standards, vision reminds you what you are protecting. Quick wins can be dangerous when they distort your foundation. Sustainable growth is slower but safer. It compounds cleaner. It breaks fewer things along the way. Faith does not make the path easier. It makes the traveler stronger. It does not remove obstacles. It trains you to move through them without losing direction. Vision does not eliminate risk. It gives risk meaning, and meaning makes endurance possible.